Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Illicit Feminine. I have my guest, Rachel Wilson, on today. She is the podcast creator of The Pussy Project, which we're going to get into in a little bit. And I'm going to let Rachel I would love just you to share a little bit about yourself, Rachel, as we're getting into our conversation today.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here. I will share that I've been a guest on two other podcasts before, or no, three. And two of those I paid to be on. So just saying, like, this is a real honor to
I'm
be
so
here.
honored to have you on this because
Um,
okay, I got to be on Rachel's last week, and Rachel is this fierce, like feminine energy. And you're going to be on so many more because I loved our conversation, and I'm so grateful to have you today.
well, thank you. Yeah. And so I've got the Pussy Project podcast going, which in my mind's eye just becomes an empire eventually, where I've just like the Pussy Project empire. I see retreats and workshops and women's circles and workbooks and a book. And we can talk a little bit about how that idea originated if you're interested in that story. And then by trade, like right now, what I do for a living is I'm an accountant, small business accountant. I've been doing that for over 20 years, 25 years, in fact, now, which ages me some, or even really longer than that. But we'll just call it 25 years as a nice round number. And currently, I'm the fractional CFO for two small companies, are my main clients. I've got a couple other just small clients who call me occasionally. And one of them is a gym in Seattle, and the other one's a local nonprofit here in the town I live in Colorado Springs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, we didn't get into that last time, so I'm very hugely impressed. I'm getting my finances like in very strict order, both personally and business wise right now. So I have a
Wow.
lot of respect for the very beautiful masculine structured energy that goes into accounting. Kudos to
Yes.
you.
Thank you. I want to clarify that I'm not a CPA only because people assume I'm a CPA and I'm not a CPA. And
Oh,
it's a really hard test. And the people who've taken it deserve that extra, those extra three letters and that credit. And so just saying, I'm just not a tax guy.
fair enough.
Anyway,
Fair
yeah,
enough.
fair enough. Anyway,
We
yeah,
give compliments to both those with the three letters after their name and those
that's
without.
right. Those with and without.
So I was sharing with Rachel. So October last week, to start October off, I shared, well, we're talking about breasts, boobs, like whatever you want to call the female
I
anatomy.
love titties. I love
I
your
love, right?
sweatshirt. Big
Even
titties.
you.
Yeah.
I was in New York last week, and there was a shop I passed by who was promoting breast cancer awareness. And I was like, this is so awesome. Like
Yeah.
I love it. So this is I should just do the podcast like that. So you just see that.
It's great. It's really great.
But my thought was, so important, so necessary to have October be Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but also in my just beliefs, we also get to look at like the other side of every stick. And so while we can really look at promoting breast health awareness, I also think that we can also really cultivate an awareness pre-breast getting sick. And so, like, really being aware of the health of breast when you don't have cancer, like the health, the beauty, like the intensity that breasts bring to our lives without there being an illness attached to it. And so, I shared last week my story. I had a breast augmentation, and that was that. We're going to talk about some breasts as well as pussy with Rachel today. And then I'm going to have one of my closest friends who had I think she's like 8 years in remission now, her breast
Nice.
cancer. So we're dabbling in all of it. And then you have some different things to share with us as well. So let's jump right in.
Sounds great. It's my favorite way to do things.
Rachel, we were talking about what we were going to talk about, and
Yeah.
something that I hadn't really thought about for this month, and is one of my favorite topics, and is nursing. Like you shared when you were talking about breasts, nursing is this huge, breasts are these beautiful parts of us that give life to another human being. And I had like the most amazing experience with nursing, and nursed my kids like until they could like talk. And so it's not, that's like an experience that varies. So like, let's like hear about your experience with nursing.
Yeah.
First thing you brought up when I kind of like said breasts.
Yeah. Well, it is their purpose.
It is.
Yeah, it is. And so, yeah, it's right up the top. When I think about breasts, I think about nursing. Yeah, I'm happy to share my experience with nursing. I nursed both my kids. My first one was a girl, and I nursed her and it was fine. However, at about 3 months, I went back to work, and I went back just part-time. I really struggled with pumping, like with volume. I couldn't, anyway, I just didn't have a lot of
Yeah.
extra, I feel like. And actually, let me back up a little bit because, yeah, no, right around 3 months, a couple things happened. One is I went back to work a couple days a week. And the other is that, and I think it was 3 days a week, I took her on a trip. She and I went on an airplane. We went to visit my girlfriend in Texas. And on the way back, I got really sick, like just like really sick, like the kind of sick that comes on and, like you're fine in the morning. And then by the end of the day, you're just like so sick. And I was just so in tears. And I had this infant, in my arms in the seat. And I was so sick. And it was very clear the flight attendants brought me to first class. They took care of me as best they could. When the plane landed, I got into like a wheelchair. I mean, I was just like exhausted and like couldn't do. That was the first night that she got a bottle of formula. She had received a bottle of breast milk before that. But again, with the pumping, it wasn't my strong suit. I just didn't have a bunch of some women are just pouring out milk, which
Yeah.
I've always really envied them. Anyway, and so that happened, plus the going to work and the lack of output with pumping. We supplemented with formula, and she just preferred the bottle. That was my experience of it. When we nursed following that period of time, she would complain because, the milk, it takes a minute for the milk to let down.
And they have to work at it, right?
Yeah, they
And
have to work
like,
at it. They have to stimulate your nipple. And then for those of you who have nursed, no, but for those of you who haven't, who are listening, there's this really cool sensation that happens at the top of, like in your chest, at the top of your breast, like a tingling, like you can feel the milk coming in and coming out. And sometimes it happens if you just are, like you hear a baby cry in a restaurant and your milk will let down.
that's a, oh,
Sometimes in my parenting subsequent years, I have felt almost like, because just that love for the kids, like it's almost like you can feel your milk letting down, when they're like 7 or 8 and they leap into your, it's like you
yeah.
can just, anyway. But so what, she just would be impatient. She would complain. And I'm like, please, Sarah, just give it a minute, and she, and then, and she would nurse, but anyway, we struggled from that point on. And it was devastating to me, Elizabeth. I have a very strong soapbox about nursing. I have a pretty solid belief that it's the best way in every case. I can't imagine a time when I would think, giving a baby formula made from cow's milk is a better idea. I suppose in the light of women being able to choose what happens to their own body, I want to support that, but I also believe that the breast is best, right? And so I came into nursing with this like very sort of staunch position about it. And then when I struggled so hard, I think it surprised me, it was devastating, and it gave me a lot more compassion for women who struggle to nurse because I really had a very closed mind about it before that. I really thought, suck it up, figure it out, and nurse your baby. That was kind of my stance. And because I'm just so soft and lovey naturally. The truth is, I love people. And, if I were in a conversation with someone, I probably would have been soft and lovey. But my secret position behind the scenes is like, figure it out, nurse your baby. And so, I think sometimes God provides opportunities, right, where to expand our level of compassion. And now in hindsight, I look at it as that. Um, but I had so much trouble. I mean, I tried all the things. I then had trouble with production and there was like a medication. I did all the teas. I did, yeah, it was rough. I eventually let it go at 9 months. Yeah.
So during that, did you ever, and I think this is where like building this awareness of women with their breasts. I do think that in our culture, we're so disconnected from our breasts. One
Yeah.
of the things that I've really come to love about Tantra, both Rachel and I have experiences in Tantra. I'm new to it. You may have.
I'm new to it too. I'm not a
Okay.
big practitioner or anything. Yeah.
And so, but breasts are really seen as like this beautiful portal to enlightenment, and not just sexually, right? Like to wisdom and and to deep connection with yourself. And I do think that a lot of times that is missing. I had aesthetically thought of my breasts, but not necessarily as like a portal to wisdom. So during
Yeah.
this time, did you like feel disconnection from your breast? Were you angry with your breast? Was that even a thought in your mind? Like, what was your relationship to your breast when it was becoming hard, where it was becoming apparent that this may not be like
Mhm.
everything in your mind that you had thought it would be?
It's a great question. I didn't necessarily make a connection of being angry with my breasts. I was, however, angry with myself or in something that could be described as self-pity. I just thought for sure I was doing it wrong. I thought I did, I made a wrong move. I never should have given her that bottle that time when I was sick. I should have, I mean, I just, yes, I had a lot of inner turmoil. As far as my breasts themselves, I don't remember feeling anything about them, being like the bad guys or whatever. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, and I think it's interesting as as I am coming into a deeper relationship with my breasts, which is an interesting comment as I even hear it come out of my mouth. But I also think it's really important. Like I think that a lot of times our breasts become like just a part of our body rather than like a revered part of our body, like
Mm,
you have like the pussy project. Like we know like the pussy is like a very sacred piece of us, right? And I don't
mhm,
know that we hold that same reverence for our breasts. And I mean, again, aesthetically, yes, like we hear like that's
mm,
like the thing, like tits and ass, right? Like those are the things. Actually, for gosh, centuries and in many other cultures and religions, like, the naked feminine body is like this like idol that's worshipped in ways, not
mhm.
necessarily in the same, I guess if we could say in our American culture, we have that like in Playboy and different
Yeah, I
things.
was
But
gonna say I think it still is. Yeah. But
yeah,
not in a sacred, ancient, spiritual, necessary, Yeah.
it's
Way.
a different
I
way.
hear what you're saying. I think we're picking up what you're putting down. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so just kind of interesting. But then you would also share. So thank you for sharing your nursing piece because I think that that is like a lot of times the entrance into a woman's relationship with her breasts. I mean, obviously when we're starting to get breasts, that's something that is different. But then nursing can be a way that they really become, I mean, actually your world kind of revolves around your breasts when you're nursing.
Yes, yours and everyone's.
I mean,
Everyone around you. Yeah, the whole, yeah, because it revolves around the baby, of course. And
exactly.
as it should. That's how it goes, with the babies. They need yeah, the world becomes about them. Like Johnson and Johnson commercial, right? Everything changes when you have a baby or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, everything changes. Yeah, but I think just to, I never really had thought about my breasts as like the portal to anything spiritual either. However, I will say, I just want to share a couple things
Yeah.
aesthetically. Aesthetically, I got super lucky. Okay. And I had the most beautiful breasts, fucking the top notch 10 out of 10, like the ideal version of a breast. This is my own opinion of my
You
breasts,
got
but
it. This is
I
what
got it. Yes,
you,
it was when they were new, they were unbelievable. I remember literally like sometimes just looking at them in the bathroom in public to just look at them my own self to be like, "Oh my God, they are amazing." And I remember anytime I was going to take my shirt off with a man who had never seen them before, I remember feeling this rush of like, "Oh, you just wait. Like you are
you,
really in, like you're about to get a treat right now." And so I went into the portion of my life where my breasts were then utilized in the way in which they were made, created for, with this deep love and appreciation for my breasts, for sure, as a part of me, as a part of my identity. And so I just wanted to share that because I think it's fun. And I got really lucky, and I just went, I know I had a lot of, I've had a lot of female friends over the years, and not everyone feels that way about their breasts. It doesn't always work out like that. And so I feel very fortunate that I had all those years of really loving them and, going into like I said, before the breastfeeding even. And then, oh gosh, there was something else I wanted to share about my breasts. Oh, no, not necessarily about mine, but just in the conversation of like sort of the spiritual portal, what it made me think of is kind of the idea of the bosom in general. Right, and, like, being held, and as a baby and as a child, and just when you are held on another woman's bosom, it is sacred. It
Mhm.
is an experience of being nurtured, of being fed in some way. So, and I went on a Tantra retreat, and I've studied some yoga and a little bit, but I'm no Tantra expert and didn't even know that that was a thing with the breasts being a portal to anything, although it makes perfect sense. But anyway, that's what came to mind when you were talking about that, is just sort of the idea of, because even without nursing if you're a mother who hasn't nursed her baby, your breasts are still important to your baby. Like, they are laying on your chest, you are holding them with your body, and it's an important part of the body. So I guess that's what came to mind.
No, I love that. And I love that you shared. Okay, like I talk to a lot of women, as I'm sure you do as well. And no, there are rarely experiences where I hear women, especially even if they did love their breasts, like they're not claiming that. There's not necessarily that claiming. And I love that you were like so loving your breasts and that they were you felt so good about them and they made you feel good. I think there is that beautiful symbiotic relationship with that. And like how fortunate also that you're sharing that with us. Like I think that as women a lot of times in certain like before you may have some awakening or before you may be doing some more of your deeper spiritual work, like loving a part of your body isn't necessarily what we're taught to do, right? And
Right,
especially
right.
breasts, right? Because God forbid, like in our, depending on what am I
Yeah.
trying to say? What avenue you're on, there can be a lot of different things. So cool. And yes, like the bosom, like the chest, like laying like your head on it, it is comfort. And it all goes then, like the
Mhm.
deeper you think about this, right? Like when you kind of think you're like breasts, how deep can you go with that? Actually, it's really deep because they're life-giving in so many ways. And right, like you're saying, even if you didn't nurse, and even if it's just someone who needs love and they just happen to be here, that is a support. It is a softness. It is like a cushion. And I think that's a really cool analogy.
Yeah.
Okay. So then I would be interested because you did share this with me, post nursing, like
Mhm.
you had a different experience then with your breasts. Tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about your breast journey
Yeah.
after
Well,
nursing.
I mean, it's hard to untangle the breast journey from the rest of the body journey, from becoming a mother and going, transforming from a young, beautiful woman into a mother who is also young and beautiful. But just saying, like for me, I gained 70 pounds with my first pregnancy, and that's so many pounds. Okay. I remember at the time I worked with this woman who had two kids, and I was like, "How much weight did you gain?" And she goes, "I think I gained 17 pounds with the first one." And I like and I had already gained, and I said, "You should lie about that when people ask you that in the future." What the fuck? Anyway, I was so worried about it the whole time. So I just got huge in every way. My breasts were huge, and then they were nursing. And they were big anyway. Like, so I went into the pregnancy at 34 triple D. So, they were big anyway and awesome. So
Yeah.
anyway, so then losing that weight and coming back into my body, and then having nursed and having just gaining that much weight, period, it just changes things.
Yeah.
And so my breasts hung in a way they hadn't before, but they were still pretty nice, I would say. After the second baby, who I did nurse, he was a boy and he loved nursing. And so that was a much more fun experience for me. And I'm really grateful to him that I had that experience with him. Anyway, but when I remember postpartum with him, whatever, 9, 10, 11, 12 months later, right? My breasts hung to a place on my body that they didn't before. And I remember holding them up physically and being like, oh my God, look at this whole part of my body that you can't even see because my breasts are like in the way, like my rib cage, like this whole portion of my waist, right? And so I ended up getting a lift and reduction. I got a breast reduction after I was done nursing him and a lift, which then, brought them back up. And they're a little different now, but they're great. I'm very happy with that. I was super satisfied with that surgery.
No, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
So did you feel like what did that surgery give to you? Like, what did it or restore? What was your experience? Because
Oh.
I do think the mother, our bodies do change after birth and after
Mhm.
nursing and just after time. Yeah. What was like the emotional and the physical piece of that for you?
First of all, just logistically, the surgery itself was no big deal. Okay, just saying. I was anticipating being in so much more pain than I experienced. And now that is obviously not going to be everyone's experience. You had breast augmentation. Your experience may have been very different for me. So like even just like after the surgery right away, I was like, check it out. You know what I mean? So I felt just one more level like myself again. Motherhood is so self-sacrificing.
Yes.
It's just like an abandonment of the self in a way. And now and I think you and I are about the same age and probably about the same place in our motherhood. My youngest is 14. How old is your youngest?
13.
13. Okay. So yeah. So we're looking at the light at the end of the tunnel, so to
Yes.
speak. And so I am sort of in this part of the Pussy Project is like, what do I want to do? What is my life about? Because I've spent so much time dedicating my life to raising these children. And again, as it should be, and it's been an honor, and don't mistake me here, but it's a huge transition to go into motherhood and just lose yourself like almost completely in that. And of course, for those of you listening, that doesn't have to be the case. And maybe I could have taken my care of myself in different ways back then, but whatever. Still saying. So getting that surgery was like getting just a little piece of myself back and and having the opportunity to feel really good about my body in that way in that I hadn't felt in a long time. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that, a lot of women, so I just turned 47 and there are a lot of women earlier and then that are still doing it that are doing like mommy makeovers. They're doing different things to feel how they did or how they wanted to feel. And I just am a huge supporter in whatever a woman wants to do to make herself feel on the outside how she feels on the inside, and
Yes.
I think that wherever someone stands on that is fine, but I think it's important for women also to understand that it's okay that they want to feel a certain way.
Absolutely. And it's a good use of your resources to provide yourself joy and feeling comfortable in your body and feeling sexy and feeling connected to yourself in that way. And it's not that those surgeries will necessarily provide that, but I've had a couple other things done too. I had a reverse tummy tuck where they took
Mm.
the skin and they actually tucked it up under my breasts. My first baby was 9 pounds and I gained 70 pounds. My second baby was 10 pounds. I gained 55 pounds. So that 10-pound baby wrecked me, man. My belly never, I had this one fold and anyway,
Yeah.
I didn't want the hip scar of a tummy tuck, but I found out that there's a surgery where they will tuck the skin underneath your breasts. And I already had this scar from the breast reduction years before. And so, anyway, I just stand exactly where you do on this issue is that it's for me, my own experience is that for me, looking good is very important. It's not important like that to everyone. I'm a vain person.
Me too.
And so be it. I have been, again, a very lucky, pretty woman my whole life. And I like that. And right or wrong, and maybe if we lived in a different culture and it weren't so revered, and obviously we're so obsessed with youth in our culture, and so aging is, we could have a whole nother conversation
Right.
about.
Absolutely.
I'm just
Absolutely.
trying to stay pretty, as long as I can.
Yeah.
But really, for me, both of those, pretty major surgeries provided such a feeling of empowerment and just at homeness in my body, familiarity, like ability to express myself sexually in ways maybe that I haven't before. And just frankly, when you put your clothes on and you feel good, or you take them off and you feel good about your body, that is not to be undermined.
No.
It's
Not at
valuable.
all.
Yeah.
And I think there's a piece, and I do think this, and I mean, I guess this is possibly controversial, but when you go in before pregnancy and you're pretty damn happy with how you look and you're pretty damn happy with your body, like there is something that is like, well, I'm going to look like that again. Like I'm not just giving it up because I had kids. Like
Right.
I'm used to looking a certain way. And I love myself regardless, but I'm going to keep on looking that way because it's been how I've looked and I want to look that way for as long as I can. And I think for me also it's this idea of, as I do feel that I'm a much different version of myself than I was. You and I had talked a little bit about enmeshment on your podcast.
Yes.
You have to listen to it. I'll have a link to Rachel's podcast. But I think that when there's an enmeshment of any kind in a woman's life, and a man's, but I'm just talking about women for this, or identifying as women, there can be a idea of, when, for myself, when I'm coming into myself, like fully inside, like I'm like, well, no, I'm like just truly loving who I am on the inside now too. Like I want to keep, like I don't want this all then just on the outside. Like I want this to match like inside and outside. So I think that's that piece for me too, is really being able to appreciate how I feel and how I look to myself. It really isn't about what anybody else thinks, or whether they think that I'm attractive or not attractive, or young looking or old looking. It really is like, damn, I like what I see. Like,
Yes.
and I want to keep on liking what I see.
Yes. And that's valuable, I think. It's valuable enough to me to put my time,
Yeah,
resources toward that.
absolutely.
Absolutely. It's just, frankly, there's nothing like it. That
No,
feeling.
absolutely.
It's just, yeah, it's awesome. Yeah. And yeah, and like there's a lot, my body's looked a lot of different ways, and I've loved myself through all of
Yes.
that. It's not like I hated myself when I was pregnant and had gained all that weight, or but yeah, so anyway, I just am validating what you said. I fully agree. That has been my experience too, more or less.
Well, and just to go on what you're saying, yes, it's not necessarily about not loving yourself or loving yourself. I think I was in a conversation with a group of women, and it was really about loving yourself no matter what. And I think that,
Mhm.
on certain levels, while I've struggled with different parts of my life, like I have loved, like my physical, I felt disconnected from my physical body. It wasn't that I didn't love my physical body. So I don't know. I think it's a question of self-love. I think
I
there's
agree.
there's other things in that. I want to hear about the Pussy Project. Like I want to hear, how does this start? How does this, because I mean, I'm loving it, but like, how did this even begin?
Yeah. Thanks for asking. I've hinted at this a little bit on the podcast, but I've never really told like the whole story, although I have told some of it. So for any of you, hopefully the 85 people who listen to my podcast right now, which
I'm
maybe
gonna
then
kill her both.
we'll just have times 100, okay, by the time people are listening to this. Anyway, please forgive me if this is redundant, but so here's how the idea came to be. It was, I believe it was after my second baby. For a while there, I thought it was in between the two, but it doesn't really matter. After one or both of them, I went to see a pelvic floor physical therapist at the recommendation of a friend of mine who, at that time, I think was a doula and studying to be a midwife. And I had been experiencing pain with intercourse. In particular, I feel like in certain positions and on like one side more than the other. And I'd gone to the gynecologist. They'd given me some ultrasounds. I think at one point we thought maybe there was a cyst. And anyway, and I believe, which I would imagine you believe this as well, but I believe when things show up for me in my body, there's something going on with me emotionally or spiritually
Absolutely.
that generally needs to be looked at. So I just want to add that I was also looking at that because I think when we have issues with our femaleness, there's something about that, right? Like with our female parts or with sex and sexuality. And I've done a lot of work over the years on my sexuality and on, some childhood issues around that. So all of that to say that I was nonetheless experiencing this pain and just trying this other avenue. So I went to this physical therapist. The exam is a manual exam. She inserted her fingers into my vagina and felt around my pelvic bowl, which are like all the muscles that hold the pelvis, I think, together with the rest of your body. I'm no anatomy, okay, major, but anyway, There's muscles down there.
Lots of
So,
muscles.
there's lots of muscles. So anyway, so she's basically fingering me, right? And able to recreate some of that pain. And I was like, "Oh my gosh." I'm like, "So that's like muscle pain?" And she's like, "Yeah." She said, and then she explained how we hold a lot of tension in our pelvic bowl. And that rang true for me. And anyway, I feel like we could have a whole podcast just on that.
I was gonna
But
say, we need to talk about the pelvic floor and prolapse and everything that comes with that, because those are super important things that, again, not enough women are talking about.
let's do that. Yes. I did have a pelvic floor physical therapist on my
Wow.
podcast a couple weeks
Awesome.
ago, and she was great. Anyway, so she's given me this exam, telling me basically that it's important that I relax because at that point I had really learned a lot about the Kegels and strengthening the pelvic floor, and I was pretty strong. I felt confident going into it. And I was tense. And so she's like, it's just as important to relax. So we talked about that. And I was like, well, okay. And so I did. I did my best to start relaxing. And I think I went to see her a couple more times. And in those subsequent sessions, at one point, I was like, well, how do I ease that pain or release that tension in those muscles? And she said, well, just like any muscles, massage really helps. And I'm like, well, how do you massage those muscles that are all deep up inside you? And she said, you can do it a couple ways. One of the ways, which is the one I chose, was through vaginal intercourse with an erect penis. If you concentrate and relax your body and move your body around and move the erect penis around inside you, you can massage those muscles. So I did try it. It's not super hot, okay, to do that during sex, but it can be. It's all right.
Make it,
You
right?
can make
Yeah.
it work.
Yeah.
So anyway, I tried, but she said the other way was because I was like, okay, but I'm like at that point again, 2 kids, we weren't having sex like every day or anything, right? So I'm like, what else could I do? And she said, you could there's like a wand they make, and she gave me a link or whatever, maybe, and lay down on your bed 3 times a week for 20 minutes and insert this wand vaginally and then massage your own pelvic floor muscles. And I was telling my girlfriend about it on the way home from that appointment. And I remember saying, I was like, oh my God, having a pussy is a fucking project. Like men aren't dealing with like, okay, you should probably lay it in because I had 2 little kids at the time, Elizabeth, and a job and a house and a husband.
There's
And I'm not
so
gonna lay
much
it
available time to lay down with a
right.
for
There's
20
just
minutes a week.
so yeah, and it's like the drink more water and exercise solution to everything, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, just spend 20 minutes 3 times a week. And it's like, well, you can 20 minutes 3 times a week yourself to death to like, there's so many things that want your attention for 20 minutes 3 times a week. Anyway, so that's how just the pussy project itself was born. And I remember thinking immediately, that's a great idea for a book. We had a conversation about it. And again, I had 2 little kids and a job and a husband, and I was not interested in writing a book or spending that time. I didn't have the time. I didn't have the time to do the pelvic floor massage, much less write a book about it, right? So, anyway, so that was many, many years ago. And then the way it came to be right now is that I have been unhappy in my career. Let's just say that. I want to say, however, just like with the physical ailment, I believe that showed up to as a way to teach me something or for me, there was something there for me. In other words, the jobs themselves, the work itself is not at fault. there's something going on with me that has me create this pattern over and over again. So I've done a lot of work and I'm in a very good place with my accounting career right now. I just want to say that. And I'm happy with my clients and happy with the work and happy for the skill. And that hasn't always been the case. And I've gone through a fair amount of internal suffering around it, and again, self-pity. I'm a big fan of it. So anyway, I had hired an executive coach to help me like kind of see what's next, have a breakthrough in my career in some way. And she asked me a question, which was, what if you were not allowed to do what you do for a living? What would you do for a living? And so with that exercise, I wrote that I would probably write the Pussy Project book. And I had a friend in mind to help, like to play off of, and I thought our voices would be good. I would probably write the Pussy Project book. And then when I wrote that, I started writing, and then it could turn into workshops and retreats, and I could see it developing into this whole enterprise, right? And a podcast. And again, I'm not interested in writing a book. I'm looking at spreadsheets. I'm sitting in my office alone quite a bit. I'm not interested in more lonely, boring work. And not that writing a book is boring, although I think it probably is. Definitely lonely. And so I started with the podcast. So I'm like, I'm going to start with the podcast. Eventually I will write the book. Eventually I'll do, who knows, but there's nothing I love more than talking to people. And like I told you, I just want to talk about pussies and laugh out loud because I think it's hilarious that we have a project and all of us are dealing with this project. You know what I mean? We have our own pussy projects. And I just thought that would make for excellent fodder.
You're right. Every single one of us is dealing with it. And there's all different experiences. And I also believe the more we can connect women to their pussies, to like all these different things that are going on, like it's such important work. It's such important work. And I think it goes with kind of where I'm trying to go is, yes, let's do breast cancer awareness and let's do all these different awarenesses, and because they're very important and they're very valid. And let's also just talk about the health and like how to stay healthy and connection and cultivate relationships with parts of our body that, people may not even know that you can have a relationship with your pussy or your breasts or different things like that. Right. And you're fucking hilarious. And I love these conversations. I really enjoy them. If you could help women to understand something more about their pussies or connect or think, like what would be something that you would share with women about that?
When I think about that question, I think about my daughter. Yeah. I have an 18-year-old daughter. And so like, what do I want her to know going into her adulthood? I would say a couple things come to mind. Number one, learn about your menstrual cycle. Learn about your menstrual cycle. That's like one thing I would say to any young woman, any woman of any age. If you're menstruating, learn about it, learn about the different phases, pull up, just Google hormonal changes throughout the menstrual cycle. Look at that graph. Know what's going on with your estrogen, progesterone during your menstrual cycle, at least those two, right? I still am not 100% on the FSH and whatever, all the luteinizing hormone. There's a bunch, okay? But just know what's going on. So I think that's super important. It's been a game changer for me to know about what's going on in my body and to not expect myself to perform like a man every single day when I'm a different person every week during these menstruating years. So that'd be my first thing. And then the second thing along those lines is love your menstrual cycle. Try to get to a place where you can appreciate the beauty of the cyclical nature of the woman's body. So those would be the first two. And then regarding the pussy itself, meaning like the vulva, the whole thing, is that it is our direct line to pleasure. The clitoris is made for pleasure and pleasure alone. It is its only function. There's no other organ in the human body that has only pleasure as its function, right? And so I would say find pleasure in it. Find it on your own. See if you can look to where you're shortchanging your own pleasure in your sexual encounters with other people. Are you doing performative sex? Are you not asking for what you really want? Are you not asking to slow down? Are you not allowing yourself to slow down? I would imagine almost every woman would like to slow down in bed and is afraid that they can't. At least this is my has been my experience. And even now, sometimes I get afraid, like I don't want to take the time. I'm busy. I'm whatever. I get in my head. I'm afraid that I'm not worth the time, that the man will get bored, that he will think, oh God, now she wants to be, she wants to go slow again, or whatever. So I would encourage women to be in touch with what they really want and what will bring them pleasure. And I think a good way to start is with your pussy.
I love this. I love really bringing the awareness about menstrual cycle, especially to just younger women, like, thinking about your
Yeah.
daughter. And then, although I think it's important across all ages, because as like perimenopause is coming and then later menopause, or for those who have had some sort of cancer and maybe on or off of
Yeah.
their estrogen blockers, right? Menopause comes, so then there's a whole different cycle that you're learning, like really always being very aware of our bodies, just loving that and the cycles that we're in, and we're cyclical beings. And then, yeah, I mean, yes, pleasure, such an important part of our lives, and really learning about your pussies. Rachel, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, our time like goes like this. It went so fast.
So fast. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And thank you for asking those questions. They were really great. And I appreciate the opportunity to share, what I think. I love that.
I love it. I love hearing what you think. How do
Yeah.
people find you? How can they reach out to you?
Ah,
What's the best way to get in touch?
yes. I am on rachelwilsonlive.com. So it's just RACHELWILSON live.com. Also, the pussyproject.live will get you there. I think you could Google the Pussy Project. You can find the Pussy Project podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I am available for speaking gigs, for podcast guesting. I'm considering dabbling in some coaching. I haven't really done that before. I could be available for CFO work if it's the right work. I don't have a lot of extra time for that, but you never know.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank
And
you.
I do look forward to our next conversation.
Me too.
Well,
Thanks.
thank you for joining us on the Illicit Feminine. And remember, nothing sacred is silence.